Hi, it's Jay here. I like to do a check-in with Orlando Furioso, a epic Italian poem written in its final form in 1532. It's a chivalric romance where there's dashing adventures, fantastic creatures, and stuff like that. I am only halfway through the poem. This is actually in the translation that I am reading, it's split up into two books. The first book being 832 pages long. The second book, 800 pages with, little introductions and stuff like that. But it's 46 cantos altogether. I have just read the first 23, but I wanted to stop before I launch into the next half of this poem and just sort of check in with, hey, what am I thinking? What are the things that I think are cool about it right now before I go on? Because it's like when you're doing really long works, I find I can just lose I can lose what happened in the beginning, and all my thoughts are with what's at the end, and if I don't kind of capture what I had before. And I mean, there's some amazing things to capture here. Should probably just give a quick shout out to Tom at LA Books, which is the reason why I'm reading this. He's been going through canto by canto on this work, and if you want a really great introduction to it, I will put a link down below to his playlist of going through the first half of this book. I think he's almost at the halfway point himself, but I mean, he's got to put a lot more work into it, and I think he's got other projects, frankly, that he also apparently wants to do as well, versus letting this consume him. So yeah, but I wanted to stop and just sort of give you some thoughts on this poem. This is a poem where it's like a knight blushes so hard his armor turns red. There's a citadel of Cretan women who for like the last 2,000 years have been murdering and enslaving men, basically just using them for reproduction in sort of a kind of an ancestral kind of hatred of men. There's a sorceress who enchants a knight and sort of turns him into kind of a femi boy toy. Kind of these kind of little notes that I wanted to bring up, which is not the main story of this thing. This poem is about Orlando going mad, furioso. That's what that means in this case. Going mad because he's pursuing the fair Angelica, who is a princess, daughter of the great Khan from Cathay. Now, Cathay usually means China, but actually in this case it seems to mean some part of India. But the big thing being she is not Christian, and she is sort of taken as a prize in this kind of what seems to be a fictitious battle of the invasion of the Saracens into Europe, and being led by the great Christian king Charlemagne against them, of which Orlando is one of the great warriors. Angelica escapes and is pursued by several knights, all bent on regaining her. And it is a chivalric tale of supposedly love, but it's not a reciprocated love. Orlando is in love with her, and she is fleeing like crazy, does not want anything to do with him, and uses her own smarts and wiles to get away with him. And spoiler alert, Orlando goes crazy because he finds out that Angelica has made her own choices in the matter. I will leave it just at that. And that's indeed by the end of canto 23 here. That's what you get to witness. You've witnessed what happens leads up to, and indeed the start of Orlando's madness. But that is just one of the many braids throughout this story. You have it's interesting. Aristo is definitely using a lot of stuff to kind of play off of that, where you have other couples who are very much in love and are kept apart from each other. Just like all these different, there's all these many different stories that get bounced back and forth from, which he just masterfully kind of plays with the reader of like the man uses cliffhangers, it seems like, at the end of every canto. It's like, oh, but there's not enough time to tell the story, so maybe next time. And then he'll start next time, but then he'll switch over to a different story, and he does it in such an entertaining and energetic sort of way. This is all done in a kind of in a rhyming scheme scheme with an eight line stanza kind of rhyming scheme with a kind of a double rhyme at the that kind of like a DD at the end, where it's like it gives it like kind of a almost a little stingers at the end of each line, oftentimes, which is used for comedic effect a lot of times, but also kind of the adventure and stuff like that. But yeah, I wanted to just kind of note a couple of things that I really enjoyed. Yes, there. I think the whole thing about how these knights, these super powered war machine knights are treated in this book is just so fascinating, in that there's very much a satirical lens to this. It's very much we're not taking these super macho guys that seriously, are we? And yeah, stuff like this Scottish knight who fights a battle against another knight, and then upon learning that this other knight who's bested him is actually a maid, Zerbin. Oh, here. See, this is where I'm going to get into trouble, is trying to find all my different little notes here, which of course I can't find. How do I? Okay. I'm just going to pretend this is a little pause. Yes. We're just going to edit, I guess. We're going to edit. So Zerbin goes, when he learns this, Zerbin, his cheeks are crimson. He averts his glance, and almost from his head on the helmet on his head down to his greaves, his armor blushes red. So almost, but you get the kind of the thing there of suddenly you've got this image of a knight in red armor because he's so embarrassed that a woman has bested him. Yeah, because there's a lot of what I would call male anxiety going on in this book from these super powered, super macho males and the super macho kind of chivalric society. There's this citadel near Syria where this group of Cretan women, who apparently go all the way back to Homer, they've been around for 2,000 years, have been kind of descending on shipwrecks, enslaving and slaying the men on board, where they're given a choice. They are given a choice where you have to basically you have to challenge 10 knights. You have to defeat 10 knights, and then you also have to satisfy 10 women in one night sexually. And if you can't do that, you're slain, and so is all your fellows. But if you succeed, all your fellows can be released, and you will stay and be a prince of rule over them, having taken the 10 women as your wives. To that, basically, they're saying we're finding the best studs to be able to breed more of these Cretan women. The boy children are either given away or just simply murdered, and the women are raised up to be yet another generation of this society. And indeed, it's interesting because they do have male slaves there who end up getting kind of changed. All manly weapons to men are denied, save for the chosen group often, of course, who, as ancient custom has ordained, permitted to fight, as I explained. That's the 10 protector knights. The others at the distaff and the spindle, the comb, the needle, and the loom are found. Their strength diminished, their spirits dwindle. Their garments are so long they sweep the ground. As no masculine desire their bosoms kindle, as patiently they plow in fetters bound, or guard the flocks. Few males there are in all. So that kind of thing of like, oh, and the males they are not. They're drained of their thing. They're wearing kind of sweeping gowns. There's this definite theme within this thing of men being afraid of being unmanned in a way. That's probably the best example of that is this sorceress who enchants this knight. The knight being a very significant character in the book, Ruggiero, who he is separated from Bradamante, and Ruggiero is a Saracen in this case, and Bradamante is the Christian, and they're being kept apart. Ruggiero wants to marry Bradamante. He'll convert to Christianity, and they'll get married. Unfortunately, there's a prophecy that they'll get married and then he'll immediately die. So that's not a great thing. So there's forces trying to keep them apart. But in this circumstance, he is transported to this island on a magical hippogriff, flying creature, and is enchanted by this sorceress Alcina, and she makes Ruggiero forget who he is. And then we edit again. Which I'm just going to have to take. All right. No drink. Yes, she makes him forget all about Bradamante, and he gets transformed. Indeed, so transformed that when someone comes to rescue him, what they find is a splendid chain he wears about his neck, glittering with gems. It reaches to his breast. 2 shining bracelets now his arms bedeck. Alas, once of all arms the manliest. 2 little threads of gold his earlobes prick, forming 2 rings from which the loveliest of pearls are hung, one dangling at each ear, finer than Indians or Arabs wear. From curling tresses, scented with pomade, a costly and delicious fragrance came. So amorous was every move he made, it was as though, to his undying shame, a servile courtship all his life he'd paid to women of Valencia. His name alone remains all unaltered, nothing else, so greatly is he changed by magic spells. So yes, Ruggiero is turned from a warrior into a pomade earring wearing thing. It's again, it seems to be kind of like, oh my god, I'm being turned to the feminine. There's even a thing here of kind of like, to the foreign here, kind of all these kind of anxieties about being, if the ideal is to be a super macho male, then the most horrible thing is to become female. Oh my god. And indeed, when he is yes, and indeed, when the spell is released from him, numb before his senses springs to life straightway, aware now of his state, he is beside himself and longs for a deep hole into which to hide himself. So, yes. Aristo seems to really delight in showing knights getting really undercut, or really like, oh my god, I'm uncertain now about my masculinity, or something like that. It's that kind of fun thing. And there is so much going else on here. I mean, the whole thing of Orlando going crazy because a woman has decided to give herself to someone else, she's actually taken agency and has gone mad because of it, is sort of there's a little bit of a commentary going on there as well. I mean, now it depends on whether, I guess, you're viewing Orlando as the hero of the piece. I mean, he definitely is one of the main protagonists, but it's one of these things of like, I'm reading this through translation. I'm obviously reading it through modern eyes, which is not what the audience at the time, but there seems to be so much kind of fun here. There's so much kind of winking here. There's so much kind of stuff going on that's kind of going like, maybe things aren't as just straightforward as you think they are, buddy boy there with your big sword. That I'm enjoying whatever way that you're supposed to enjoy some work of literature. This is the way. This is the way that I am. This is the way I'm enjoying it. I mean, there are super battle scenes in here. There's Rodomonte, one of the leader of the Saracen army, who just butchers people. There's a bunch of stuff like that where there's a big action set pieces, which, to be honest, that's not my thing. So I kind of lightly go over them. I mean, there's a scene where Angelica gets chained naked to a rock and is rescued by Rigurio on his hippogriff from a giant sea monster, which is, I mean, here's a picture of that. That's kind of super hot and sexy. There is plenty of yeah, I mean, there's plenty of sex in here as well as the comedy. It's got action, sex, comedy. What else could you ask for in your great epic poem? And I'm really looking forward to continuing on with it and probably reading it all wrong all the way through. But yeah, I just figured I'd stop in and just say, hey, wow, this is fun. Thank you, Tom LA Books. What I've just said, Tom is not responsible for any of that, other than just making me have an enjoyable experience with this poem. All right, I will leave it there. More videos later.